The human psyche. This is something what concerns everybody. There is no man without psyche. With our psyche, each of us lives as best we can, and each person lives with a different psyche. There are no two psyches which are the same. The role of science is to find the key to understand things. The psyche is such a thing. I spent more than 20 years studying it, and I found the key. So without unnecessary words, I get to the point. There are two poles in the human psyche, the anxiety pole and the emotional pole. The diversity of the human psyche comes essentially from the expression of these two poles. What seemed so complicated turns out to be simpler than you might expect. After all, for thousands of years, the man has been trying to explore the nature of the psyche, and these attempts have always resulted in extremely complicated visions of its functioning. Meanwhile, it turns out to be based on the incredible simplicity of operation. That is something very simple because it consists in the interaction of only two independent functions. Only two. Man's whole life plays out between these two poles. And that's all. There is nothing simpler in the nature than the human psyche. Because it's just what? It's experiencing the influence of two poles, the pole of anxiety and the pole of emotions. What in our brain is responsible for the ability to feel, what we can call our mental sensitivity equipped with an infinite potential for expressions in the form of an infinity of thoughts, words, feelings, would all these be dead and probably would have never arisen at all if it was not in the interpolar field between the pole of anxiety and the pole of emotions. Each of these poles has its own way of animating the interpolar dead space. This means that anxiety and energy, because it's appropriate to call energy something that has the ability to move dead things and put them in motion. This anxiety, energy, will activate words, thoughts, feelings accumulated in the interpolar field of our psyche in a way appropriate for it. In other words, different words, thoughts, feelings will dance in a different way, like iron feelings in a magnetic field when the anxiety pole is triggered, and different ones when the emotional pole is triggered. Of course, these poles emit their energy simultaneously, and the human psyche is the simultaneous play of the influence of both poles. And that's all. This is the human psyche. Nothing easier. It's hard to believe that it took me more than 20 years and much longer for humanity to get to this truth. How then can people be so different from each other when, as I say, the human psyche is trivially simple in its function? But I'm not saying that people are different. And I'm certainly not saying that this is a significant difference. This is only a common view which turns out to be completely unfounded. Since in all people we deal with a simple bipolar mechanism of the psyche, why would we be so different from each other? Yes, there are inter-individual differences, but these are only cosmetic differences, because the only thing that distinguishes individual people from one another is the energy potential of each of the poles and their sum in the interpolar space in which there are thoughts, words, and feelings. Thus, this merely cosmetic difference between individuals will come from only three sources: the energy potential of the anxiety pole, the energy potential of the emotional pole, and the structure of the interpolar space. I will discuss these three sources one by one. The energy potential of the anxiety pole is the innate, individual, constant level of anxiety assigned to every human being since birth. Everyone's level of anxiety is stored in the genes. In this book, I refer to this level as anxiety energy potential. Anxiety is something that emanates energy, especially those of us who were born with a highly expressed anxiety gene know it. At times, when this fear as anxiety is revealed, its energy is sometimes by some people so great that we can spend hours thinking tirelessly, doing many, often physically difficult things. Where do we get so much strength for it from? So much energy? From the activated potential of the anxiety pole. Words, thoughts, and feelings contained in the interpolar space begin to dance their anxiety dance under the influence of anxiety and energy. Everybody knows what this dance looks like. It's a looping swirl of thoughts and words that feels like an unpleasant feeling of anxiety. Words and thoughts will dance the various dramas of the dance of anxiety, from fear for the future, through fear for survival, to the unpleasant feeling of individual fragility, which is hard to be called with words. Thus, in people with a high anxiety pole potential, words and thoughts are selected and carried by high anxiety energy. As you can easily guess, the energy of anxiety selects thoughts, words, and sensations that are related to the anxiety. You could say that the anxiety pole uses the interpolar means of words, thoughts, and feelings to describe anew and anew what fear as anxiety is. It's a never-ending story of fear as anxiety. A person who is not aware of the described model of functioning of the human psyche does not even see that the thoughts, words, and feelings, and therefore the very essence of the life, is happening completely without our will. It's an automaton that takes place completely without human will. So it's not difficult to see that this fearful tale tells itself incessantly, from waking up to falling asleep day after day, month after month, year after year, all life. Very quickly, already in childhood, it becomes the most obvious and unquestionable thing. And so is half of our disposition and personality, half of our psyche. The other half is due to the emotional pole that makes words, thoughts, and feelings dance, a dance of emotions. The emotional potential is also embedded in our genes. We are born, and one can already know how much energy the emotional pole will emit into the interpolar space of our psyche. Also here, completely independently from our will, from the very beginning of our consciousness to its end. The material of the interpolar space, in the form of thoughts, words, and feelings, will tell the story of the emotional pole. Always the same story. So, this will be a story full of sorrow or joy, love or hate, the will to act or doubt, victory and defeat, satisfaction and dissatisfaction. Whatever it is, always inseparable from its opposite. The emotional pole is evolutionarily older than the anxiety pole. It occurs, in contrast to the latter, characteristic only of humans, already in higher animals. This explains its extreme simplicity. So it's either emitting positive or negative energy, or it turns itself off. And finally, the third element of the simple mechanism of the human psyche. This is the structure of the interpolar space. It's made up of words, thoughts, and feelings. This is the only element of the mechanism of the psyche that we do not inherit and which is a matter of the individual achievements of each of us. It's a collection of words, concepts, ideas, and arguments commonly known as intellect.